How's it going, Denver? Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you as well. How are things your way? Staying warm, hopefully.
Yep, snowy and cold. We got almost 17 inches, I think, on Sunday. So,
Yeah.
been shoveling a lot.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I think we got about 13 or 14 inches here in Cleveland. So yeah. Not loving winter any more than any other year. Anyways. Um yeah, so thanks for everyone joining us today. We're excited to continue our power session series here. We're going to go through the project review functionality today. So how to streamline it. We'll talk through some of the setup and kind of best practices along the way. And if anyone has questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We'll save a couple minutes at the end, as we normally do, to address any questions that may come up throughout today's meeting.
Yeah, it sounds good. I know it's not too old, 'cause I guess in terms of we have a little bit newer feature, but definitely see usage picking up and just helping yourself identify trends and how projects are running and things like that. So,
Yeah, no, and that's a good point, Gary. I think the biggest benefit for me as I see the project review is hopefully to help facilitate those project level meetings, or to help better prepare the project managers or the operations team to be able to store their information, to be able to look over their jobs on a monthly basis. So that way they're up to date. We've got all of our saved project reviews in the system. So that way, if I want to go look back at last month or 6 months ago, as long as they're being entered into the system, it'll keep track of it, and then you'll be able to reference it at any given point. Now, the setup is very minimal, and you should only have to do this once. So, for those interested in getting this set up, under the administrator section is our review settings. So a couple quick things here, obviously not too much here. But basically what you're able to do in the first section here is set up your cadence for how frequently we want these project reviews to be due within the job record, right? So the start date, this doesn't have to be anything in particular. You don't need to change this each month or anything like that. This is just saying, once I hit this date, from there moving forward, that functionality will be open to be able to be used on the job. So if I wanted to do December's numbers, just make sure that we have our start date back to at least December 1st of 2025, right? So I know there's a question that comes up about having to update this. This is just saying, as of that date, project review is able to be scheduled out. Looking at the recurrence, obviously we're saying we want this monthly, probably the most typical. You know, maybe we do it bi-weekly, but monthly seems to be, by and large, the most frequent recurrent schedule for project reviews. Now, the due on, for a lot of people, closing the month, if we're wrapping up December, maybe we don't have all of our accounting entries till the 10th or the 15th, maybe even later in the month. So just keep that in mind. If, let's say, by the 15th, we want to have all of our costs entered, our AP, our billings, everything completed by the 15th, maybe have the due date for the project review be a couple days after that, or even on that day, right? So that way it gives you time to make sure everything's posted to the jobs and give yourself some wiggle room for making sure those project reviews are completed. Okay. And then in the review period, generally speaking, have the month selected. Prior month is by far the most common. So what this means in my setup here, my next project review is going to be due on Friday, January 30th, and I'm going to be reviewing the month of December. So that's pretty standard, pretty typical for how I would probably go about setting this up. Okay. Schedule and custom fields. I'll point out where these go, but basically, if you wanted to add in all of your employee types here, as you get to scheduling out number of hours per week per role, just add your trades essentially here. And then the custom fields are basically anything else that we want to be able to track within the project review. So whether it's for high voltage, low voltage, a table to enter margin or inspection dates or safety issue, you can add as many of these as you want. So when you add it, give it a name, give it a description, and then what type of field we want this to be. So if I want to drop down, then I can create my yes, no, or if I want a checkbox or a date selector, you can kind of pick and choose what type of field is going to be entered for each one of those custom fields. Okay. So setup, pretty minimal. Once you have this, probably forget that this exists because you should only have to touch it once. But getting into the project review, two ways to get to it. And one, if you're on the home screen, we can click right on the job that we want to enter our project review for. When you click it, it'll open up your overview tab, which you'll see this ribbon right here for project review. That's one option. Second option is if I'm in the WIP report and I scroll on down, you'll see this column here, this upcoming project review. If you don't, you may just need to add it through the edit columns, but you can get into these project reviews directly from the WIP just by clicking on, in this case, incomplete, and it'll pull up the window on the side. So if you don't want to go clicking into every single job separately, you can do it right from the WIP as well. So for anyone who's trying to go through their list of project reviews, hey, I've got these 5 jobs, this might be a good option to be able to just click into one after the next. Okay. Now, with the project review, there's a couple statuses, and I'll explain how it determines what. But the idea is that incomplete means haven't started it. I believe the next one is started. So something has been entered, some checkbox has been marked. Completed, meaning everything's at least checked off, and then submitted once everything's checked off and we click the submit button. So you'll be able to tell what the status of those project reviews from the WIP report just by looking at this column here. Okay. But getting into, if I go to the job and I go into my project review ribbon here, this is where now we can start entering and tracking the information for the month of December. So, talking to other contractors, Garrett, I'm sure you have some experience on this too, but the project review is set to solve 2 things. One, helping facilitate these project review meetings, either by better preparing the project team, but also just a spot where operations, accounting, management, whomever, can store, see, and just keep up to date with everything going on with each job for each month. I think it's a great place to do all that, and it gives it one central location for tracking this kind of information. But Garrett, I'm sure, talking to clients as far as helping with those meetings, what kind of feedback have you heard so far?
Yeah, I think most people I talk to seem to conduct their PM reviews once a month. Seems to be the most common occurrence. Some every other month, but that's a little more rare. So just kind of, helping those meetings along, tracking, the forecasting, decision making, give them better insights, and really lets the PM kind of gain more insight in their jobs. And, obviously one poor job can kill a company. So really kind of staying ahead of the curve there.
And helping people be more proactive with seeing trends or seeing, pluses and minuses while going through this project review. So we'll go through each of the different tabs here. The first one, financials. So it's just going to be a high level look at the job, right? Contract amount, budget, cost, billings, right? Pretty straightforward. Margin tracker. So basically taking what is our original profit margin here versus our projected profit margin, right? So this will come out of the accounting system, original contract, original budget. Projected margin is going to look at my projections over here on the right. These values are going to be found on the WIP report. So if I go look at that job, I can see that those two values are in my projected contract, projected cost, which are populated here. So if anyone's curious on where these numbers are pulling from, that's kind of where you can find those. Okay, now each one of these sections, so in this top section here, I've got a comment box and I've got my I reviewed checkbox. So if I want to put any notes, click the box, type it in, right? When I submit it, we can see all of our notes that have been entered in, who entered it, and when it was entered. So if I'm tracking, things, maybe I'm updating items within the review on a weekly, bi-weekly basis, we can keep all of our notes handy within each of these sections here. All right, so once we get to the point, I've entered my notes, everything is where it should be. I'm going to check the box for I reviewed. Okay, issues or concerns, we can itemize them out. There were additional days or cost impact for anything. This is our chance to put everything on the table, right? Keep it as transparent as possible. Let's put in all of our information. That way, project team needs their CYA. If the accounting team wants to just, see more insights into the job, we've got all of the information readily available here. So same thing, enter our information. We can plus sign it to add another line, add in our comments. I reviewed it, moving on. So the second tab, project forecast. Now, for anyone who's using the cost forecast worksheet within ProNovos, I think this tab might be the most impactful or informational tab of them. Not to say the others aren't good information, but this one, what you're going to see is what our projected cost is, cost to date, pretty straightforward. The summary is going to be a list of all of our cost types, cost classes in some cases, where it's going to show us our budget from the accounting system, our actual costs, open commitments, and then the projected final cost. So this is going to summarize all of the information on the cost forecast worksheet and then organize it per each one of our cost types. And then cost to complete is just taking projected cost minus total cost. Okay, if you want to go looking for more information about the details, we can go click into the cost forecast. And now you can get into all the phases and cost codes and all the detail that would be stored right within the cost forecast worksheet here. Okay. What I really like is the next two sections, looking at job cost. So I'm looking at cost for the month, strictly for December for this job. Here's each one of my cost codes, each one of my cost types. What's my cost for that month? It's a great way to just spot, hey, we had $2,500 in PM labor. Well, maybe we didn't. So we can hopefully spot some of those items maybe sooner than later. So if those need to get reclassed, maybe it's a note, costs on PM labor to be reclassified, right? We can add the notes, put them in there, save them, and then, maybe we go back to the accounting system, adjust our entries, however we need to go about it, but a good spot to just double check what's been costed to the job. Okay. Let me start checking all our boxes here. Now, the next section after our job cost for the month is the forecast adjustment. So all of those cost forecast adjustments that we're making in ProNovos to each one of our cost codes and classes will start showing each one of those pluses and minuses in this section. So this is a really cool spot here because now I can start to see, all right, we had an internal budget adjustment, we had missing materials, we can see who entered it, when it was entered for, and what that cost impact was for that specific line item. If there was any notes that were associated with that entry, we could see those listed right below. So once again, I go through my cost forecast sheet. I'm looking at my job review. Now I've got a nice summary of all the changes I made for that month. Excuse me. Then once we get to the bottom, we're looking at same thing, all of our notes I reviewed. We can check our boxes and we can move on to our next tab here. Okay. Change orders, basically looking at the original values versus our revised. What's our initial profit? What's our revised profit without taking into consideration any of our projections? So just simply original scope versus our new scope with our change orders. Okay. Now, as we scroll on through, we can get a nice summary of each one of our statuses. What's the impact to the contract? What's the impact against the budget? Once again, I'm checking my boxes. I'm putting in my notes. I'm going through here. New change orders. I did have any change orders in the month of December based on any of those statuses pending. We're tracking all the different stages. They'll all show up here. Okay. Billings. Now I can see, all right, yes, we did bill this much in the month of December. We can see what our total bill, total contract amount, earned revenue. Do we need to put any notes? Maybe this said did not bill in December. Maybe we can put in our notes why we might not have billed for the month of December. Right? If I want to go looking at the project billings report, click the arrow, it'll take you to the dashboard, which I don't have in front of me here, but it would take you to the dashboard here, and then you can start looking at more of the details. Over under billing, good spot to, hey, we're overbilled 490,000. Is there a reason that we're this far overbilled? Are we ahead of schedule? Are we expecting a lot of costs for the month of January that we're not going to bill for? This is where, once again, we can put in more of our notes for that section. Okay. Now we get into more of the outstanding invoices on the job. Nothing outstanding. Here's how much money we brought in. And on average, how quickly the customer is paying the invoices on this job. So if I wanted to take a look at all the, if there was any outstanding invoices, I would see them all listed out down below. So we're checking all of our boxes. Now the last two tabs here, schedule. For start date and finish date, these will pull from the accounting system if filled in. You can manage these directly in ProNovos, so I could change these. Just know if you do change them, they're only going to pull from ProNovos for that job moving forward. All right, so in this case, this job is complete based on our schedule, 100%, no remaining weeks. If I kicked it out and said it was going to go to April, it'll say it's basically looking at total number of weeks versus remaining weeks to come up with our percent complete. Right, 13 weeks left. Now we can start looking at our summary of all of our labor hours. How many hours do we have remaining? What's our working labor rate on the job? What's our cost to complete on the labor portion? Once again, all coming from the cost forecast worksheet, right? And then the last section here is being able to take a look at weekly costs or weekly hours for this job. Now, obviously, this won't be so small when you don't have a job that goes for 2 years or 3 years or whatever it is, but you can start to see, how many hours did we spend on this job each week. So, excuse me, we can, the last little section here is just looking at how many hours we have remaining and how many weeks we have remaining. So this is just saying we have 2,200 hours, 13 weeks. We're going to be out there for roughly 173 hours per week. So now I can start to put in how many crew members in each one of those roles and how many hours for the week are we expecting to have out on the job site. Okay, so if I want to say I got one apprentice for 40 hours, we can start to, track just how many people we're going to have out there. Okay. So going through, checking our boxes. And then the last tab is going to be the custom tab, which is going to show us all of those additional text boxes or drop downs for whatever else I need to track on our specific project review. So if we needed our last inspection dates, did we do our safety meetings, blah, 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 right? Fill in our data, and then I can check off the I reviewed for the last tab here. Now, to the summary, this will now show all of our boxes as being checked, right? So this project review is complete. The last step would be submitting it. So in some cases, what I've seen is the project team will check all the boxes, review this with the management team, and then they would submit that together, making sure no other notes need to be added in there. Once I submit it, great. We've submitted our project review. Now you got the chance to export that to a PDF. Now you can go look back at all of your prior project reviews that have been completed, and now we can start to store those within ProNovos. Right. So I think pretty straightforward, just going through the list, checking off our boxes, managing our information here. But Garrett, thoughts, best practices, other things that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I kind of see adoption slowly increasing as we bring on new clients. Obviously, the tools, it's a little bit newer from everything we have in the system, but yeah, the general feedback has been good. Obviously, there's, a lot of data to digest there, but helps kick off these meetings, see trends, make sure PMs can kind of track me and, just, I guess, mitigate risks, kind of identify things early they maybe should focus in on. And
Right.
uh, it's very user friendly as we just saw, easy to get through. Just enter your notes, check your numbers, and just kind of check off the box and go to the next. So.
Right.
And then the custom fields too is super nice. Obviously, we saw
Yeah.
those are at the end, and the calendar, the check boxes, the drop downs. It's whatever you want to put in there is available for you.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, if you guys do see if you're going through reviews and you do see something and to make it better or something you may want to utilize at the end for a custom field, just let us know and we can look into that as well.
Yep. And now that we have that one submitted, we can see that out of our 60 jobs, one of those projects has submitted that project review. So I can very quickly see how many of those jobs have been completed, which ones still need to be completed from there. So yeah, I think we went through the setup, we went through all the different fields, how to get to it. So if there's questions, comments, concerns, anything anyone has, we'll save a couple minutes here to address those questions. But if not, we appreciate everyone who was able to join us for today. And sorry for my raspy voice today. I'm not entirely sure where that came from. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll be sure to answer them. In the meantime, our next hour session is going to be on the new analytic dashboards updates, some of the new visuals to it. So just how to get to the custom reports, how to update permissions, things like that. So that one will be on February 10th at our usual 1 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah, I know marketing sent out some communication on that, but be good to do a deep dive and how to get
Yep.
to MicroStrategy, edit reports, things like that. So just a little bit better layout and cleaner, I think, overall.
Yes, for sure. All right.
So, well, thanks for your time, Denver. We appreciate it, and we'll have the recording if anybody else needs it.
Yes. Yeah. And if anyone has any further questions after the fact, feel free to reach out to myself or Garrett.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, we hope everyone has a good rest of their day, and we'll see you guys on the next one then.
Yep.
All right. Have a good day, everyone.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.